So for those of you who maybe aren't aware or you've already forgotten, the policy that I am interested in implementing is mandatory threat assessment teams and training for each school district. We know there's no single profile for a mass school shooter. They're not just loners or young white males. Sometimes they're the homecoming prince. Sometimes they're the class clowns. Sometimes they're 11 years old. Sometimes they have mental health diagnoses. Sometimes they have no criminal record. But what they do share in common are the steps they take on the pathway to violence and the warning behaviors they display along the way. Our psychological, behavioral, and cognitive knowledge of targeted violence propels this policy. From studying mass shooters, we have determined that over 80% of mass shooters were in noticeable crisis prior to their shooting, with over a third of that 80% displaying at least 5 observable signs of crisis. We know psychosis was not to blame for 70% of the mass shooters in U.S. history. Hate and fame-seeking mass shootings have increased since 2015 to 2020, and unfortunately this statistic aged well in light of the recent shootings in 2022. In an analysis of 134 mass school shootings, nearly 80% leaked their plans ahead of time. And all of these statistics are from the Violence Project Database 2020, which will be referenced in my comment on the discussion page. This data helps inform our knowledge on the topic because we can understand that in order to fulfill targeted violence, perpetrators will follow a pattern of movement. There are numerous studies on this, and I'm more than happy to send my list of references, which is about 40 or so right now. Calhoun and Weston's 2003 study and Fain and Vosquill's 1997 studies have demonstrated the behavioral knowledge of how perpetrators move from step to step on the pathway, and threat assessment capitalizes upon this knowledge. Additionally, warning behaviors such as leakage, identification, fixation, novel aggression, these have all been identified as predictors of violence in Borum et al.'s 1999 study as well as Malloy et al.'s 2011 study. But we still have some psychological evidence that we still need psychological evidence. Schildkraut et al. 2020 study discusses how bystander effect and information silos impede our ability to prevent targeted violence. In fact, many studies have been conducted on the psychological and behavioral phenomenon of bystander effect. However, I've not found any studies that look into threat assessment and how it's able to overcome that effect, since assessors often depend on tips from peers or teachers. Additionally, an effective threat assessment team would be a solution to information silos. However, it's yet to be seen whether this is true or whether it has failed. And finally, the last psychological evidence that should be looked into is the effect that mandated threat assessment teams have on the culture and environment of the school. Does this negatively impact learners? Are they impacted at all? Psychological studies have been conducted concerning the effect of security measures on students, such as Johnson et al.'s 2017 study. Therefore, it seems necessary to assess the effect of threat assessment teams as security measures as also.
Hello. My name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get it done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you'll all know who I am.
And that concludes my discussion post. Please check out the references. I will link them in the comment on the discussion page. Thank you.